In 1960, John Cage, an American composer, made an appearance on national television to showcase his latest creation. However, instead of employing traditional musical instruments, Cage surrounded himself with an assortment of household clutter, including a bathtub, ice cubes, a toy fish, a pressure cooker, a rubber duck, and several radios. Equipped with these unconventional tools and armed with a stopwatch, he performed a piece titled Water Walk, producing a series of sounds with a serious expression and remarkable precision. The audience's reactions to the performance varied, with some finding it hysterical while others considering it utterly absurd. Yet, the prevailing question shared by most viewers was whether this unconventional presentation could even be considered music. Answering this question is more challenging than one might expect, as our perception of music often depends on our expectations. For instance, imagine being in a jazz club, where the rhythmic honking of horns creates a musical ambience that most people would acknowledge. However, if the same sounds were heard on a busy highway, many would label it as noise. After all, car horns are not traditionally considered musical instruments, and the drivers honking them are not regarded as musicians, right? These expectations heavily influence how we categorize and interpret the sounds we encounter. Generally, we tend to associate something as more musical if it adheres to a recognizable structure or employs popular sounds arranged in familiar patterns. Even within the realm of music, specific genres are expected to utilize particular instruments and harmonies. However, these expectations are not fixed and vary across different cultures and time periods. During the early 20th century, a period characterized by artists pushing the boundaries of their respective fields, John Cage embarked on a quest to explore new frontiers of music, beyond the confines of existing constraints. He pioneered unconventional instruments that blurred the lines between art and everyday objects, and he reinvented traditional instruments using surprising items. Additionally, Cage sought to explore novel ways of integrating music with other art forms. Collaborating with his creative and romantic partner, Merce Cunningham, Cage organized recitals where his musical compositions and Cunningham's choreography were independently developed before being performed together. Regardless of his approach, Cage delighted in challenging listeners to question the boundaries between music and noise, as well as the distinction between sound and silence. One notable example of his approach is the renowned composition of a solo piano piece consisting solely of musical rests, lasting precisely 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Rather than being intended as a prank, this composition served as a thought-provoking question: can the mere act of opening and closing a piano lid be considered music? What about the sound of a stopwatch ticking? Or the rustling, and perhaps even the murmurs of disapproval, emanating from the crowd? Similar to the blank canvases embraced by his peers in the field of painting, Cage encouraged the audience to challenge their preconceived notions of what music truly encompasses. While his compositions may not evoke the same dramatic effects as traditional pieces, they undeniably elicited strong emotional responses. Cage's work often prioritized spontaneous and ephemeral experiences over precise and predictable performances. He even developed processes that introduced an element of chance into compositional decisions. One such system he favored was the I Ching, an ancient Chinese divination text. Utilizing just a few coins, the I Ching allowed readers to generate a pattern of lines that could be interpreted to provide answers and insights. Cage adapted these patterns into a series of tables that generated diverse musical durations, tempos, and dynamics. Eventually, he even employed early computers to assist in producing these randomized parameters. In certain compositions, Cage went a step further by providing musicians with incomplete scores accompanied by broad instructions, enabling them to compose on the spot, guided by his principles. Some composers rejected Cage's seemingly unconventional and careless approach. They believed that the composer's role was to meticulously organize sound and time with a specific and intentional purpose. After all, if these unconventional compositions were deemed music, where should the line be drawn? However, like a daring explorer, Cage refused to be confined by restrictions and had no intention of adhering to outdated rules. He dedicated himself to shattering expectations and creating unique, once-in-a-lifetime experiences that continue to encourage musicians and audiences alike to embrace the unexpected.